I thought I left the war behind when I turned in my uniform. I thought the battles, the constant vigilance, the sound of danger creeping in the night, all of it was over. My mission now was simple: to give my daughter the kind of life I never had. A quiet house, a safe street, the chance for her to walk to school without wondering who might be waiting around the corner. That's what I told myself every time I looked out the window at our peaceful neighborhood, the lawns neatly trimmed, the sound of sprinklers tapping against the sidewalks. It felt ordinary, and for a while, ordinary was exactly what I needed. But if there's one thing the military taught me, it's this: danger doesn't always come from where you expect. Sometimes it hides behind smiling neighbors, well-lit streets, and rules that pretend to protect. My daughter was my anchor, the reason I chose this life after years of chaos. She laughed easily, carried her phone everywhere, always recording the small moments she thought mattered. She believed in people, in fairness, and justice. And I wanted to believe too, at least until the first sign that the safety I thought I had built was just an illusion. One evening, as we sat on the porch, she pointed out a truck rolling slowly down our street. Dark windows, spotlights mounted on the side. The words "Community Patrol" stenciled on the door. At first I dismissed it, some overzealous HOA initiative, I thought. But then the truck slowed again, idling in front of our house longer than it should have. The driver's face stayed hidden, but I could feel his eyes locked on us. And in that moment I realized I hadn't left the battlefield. It had followed me home. It started small, the way most storms do. A yellow slip tucked into a neighbor's mailbox. No return address, no official seal, just block letters scrawled across cheap paper. Violation. Fine due. At first, people laughed it off, thinking it was some prank. But laughter fades quickly when the pattern repeats. A week later, another family received one, this time demanding they move their trash cans within minutes of pickup or face penalties. Soon, envelopes were showing up everywhere, slipped under doors at night, pressed beneath windshield wipers. They carried the weight of authority, but no one could trace where they came from. The self-proclaimed HOA police made themselves known slowly, but their intent was clear: control through intimidation. They rolled down our street in that same black truck, lights flashing red and blue like a parody of real law enforcement. They barked through a loudspeaker about lawn lengths and driveway oil stains, shouting rules that no one had ever heard of. They weren't protecting the neighborhood. They were feeding on fear, testing how far they could push before someone pushed back. Neighbors whispered at first. The Thompsons down the street swore they were fined for a plastic kiddie pool they never even owned. Mrs. Lopez was warned her flower beds extended 3 inches too far beyond the sidewalk. Families who had once gathered together for block parties started keeping their curtains closed, avoiding each other's eyes as if silence might shield them from the next citation. Fear has a way of isolating people, of convincing them that suffering quietly is safer than standing together. My daughter saw through it faster than most. She had her phone raised, documenting each slow drive-by, each shouted command. She was fearless in a way only the young can be, believing that exposure alone could stop bullies in their tracks. "They hate daylight, Dad," she told me, setting her tripod on the porch. "If people see what they're doing, they'll back off." I admired her fire, but part of me winced at her certainty. I knew better. The most dangerous men are not the ones who hide in shadows, but the ones who believe they are untouchable even when the world is watching. I tried to warn her. I told her there are battles worth fighting and others that carry a price too high. But she had my stubborn streak, that same refusal to look away when someone was being wronged. And so the recordings continued, and with every new video posted online, her audience grew. Strangers cheered her courage. Neighbors whispered that maybe she was right. Maybe exposure was the only weapon they had. But I felt the tension coil tighter with each passing day, as if we were daring them to escalate. Then the first direct threat arrived. A plain envelope slipped under our mat. No name, no signature, just 4 words scrawled in rough handwriting. "Tell her to stop." I held the note in my hands longer than I should have, my pulse steady but heavy. It wasn't just paper, it was a line in the sand. The kind you can't step back from once it's crossed. My daughter brushed it off with a laugh, comparing it to online trolls, but I recognized the shift immediately. Notes stuffed into mailboxes were about control. A warning left on your doorstep was about targeting. I didn't tell her how much it unsettled me. She was 18, determined to prove she was stronger than fear. But I locked the doors earlier that night. I moved my pistol from its case to the drawer beside my bed. And I told myself that if they thought we would break quietly, they didn't understand yet who they were dealing with. The harassment didn't stop at notes and warnings. It grew sharper, more personal, each action designed to make us feel exposed, vulnerable, watched. One morning, a Polaroid slid silently under our mat. I picked it up, and the image made my stomach drop. There we were, my daughter framed perfectly in the glow of her phone screen, live streaming to show the neighborhood what was happening. Her determination had always been fierce, but this was more than observation. It was intimidation. A declaration that someone knew exactly where we were, what we were doing, and that they could reach us whenever they wanted. The black pickup returned that evening, rolling slowly as if testing the boundaries of our street. Its headlights flashed, red and blue glinting off the chrome, though no official emblem ever marked its side. The men inside were anonymous, faceless, yet their intent was unmistakable. They weren't patrolling for safety. They were watching, waiting, daring someone to challenge them. Each time the truck circled, my pulse quickened, not out of fear for myself, but for her. Emma had no idea the level of danger she was inviting by filming, by exposing their cowardice. She saw attention, validation, support from strangers online. But what she didn't see was the anger we were drawing from men who believed no one could stop them. And then I saw him. The figure leaning against the tailgate, face half-shadowed by the setting sun, triggered memories I thought had been locked away forever. Billy Kane. The same man I had trusted with my life in the deserts and mountains, the one I had fought beside when failure meant more than death. It meant the loss of everyone we loved. He looked different now, hardened, resentful, eyes glinting with a coldness I hadn't recognized before. Betrayal doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It creeps in with familiarity, with the recognition that someone you believed in has become an enemy. The night grew colder and the streets empty, but our vigilance could not falter. Emma's phone continued to capture everything. The slow creep of tires, the click of the camera shutter, the rustle of paper as the next envelope slid under our door. We knew their patterns now. We recognized the signals, and yet knowing didn't remove the tension. Every sound became amplified, the snapping of a branch, the distant bark of a dog, the hum of a passing car. Fear is not always loud. Often it resides in the spaces between certainty and chaos. She went online again, sharing the images, the videos, the story of harassment that had once seemed petty, but now carried the weight of menace. The response was immediate. View counts surged, comments poured in, strangers rallied in defense. And as empowering as it felt, it also acted as a spotlight, illuminating our home to those who already intended harm. FOMO has a different effect when it isn't about missing out on a trend. It's about exposure. A public display that can provoke danger rather than protection. I watched her, determined and brave, and felt a mixture of pride and dread. She had inherited my stubbornness, my refusal to back down. But she hadn't inherited my years of experience in situations that could end in blood or worse. I considered the ways we could protect ourselves while maintaining her autonomy, the delicate balance between empowerment and recklessness. Could courage alone shield us from men willing to cross lines that most people wouldn't even contemplate? Then came the envelope that shifted my perception entirely. The Polaroid had another layer. Markings in thick black marker, words taunting, daring. Next time we knock. That simple sentence carried a weight heavier than any fine or warning, a direct challenge that could not be ignored. My hands tightened on the paper, the familiar muscle memory of past conflicts surging briefly in my mind. I remembered tactical positioning, situational awareness, escape routes, containment strategies. Every lesson, every mission, every consequence lived and learned overseas now had a new purpose, protecting my daughter in my own home. Emma didn't flinch. She looked at me, phone steady, eyes bright despite the unease creeping into the corners of her expression. The defiance in her gaze was unmistakable. She would not be silenced. She would not hide. And in that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about surviving a neighborhood bully or a rogue HOA. It was a confrontation between courage and cowardice, between vigilance and aggression, and it was about to escalate beyond anything we had faced before. The evening air was heavy, almost still, but my instincts screamed that stillness was never a sign of safety. Emma had set up her live stream as she always did, phone perched on the tripod, sunlight fading behind her like a soft spotlight. She was speaking to her viewers, laughing nervously at the supportive comments, unaware of the shadow that had been creeping closer for weeks. Then it happened. The familiar black pickup roared down our street, tires squealing as though mocking every ounce of caution we had built. The sound alone made my chest tighten, a primal echo of countless alerts I had trained for overseas. Time seemed to stretch, the moment drawn out in excruciating detail. The truck didn't slow. It barreled toward her, its presence no longer a warning but a weapon in motion. I could see her attempt to back away, her legs tangling in the pedals of her bike, the phone slipping from her hands. And then the thud came, hollow, sickening, crushing. My daughter's scream tore through the quiet, and it was a sound that reshaped the world around me. Everything else fell away, the tranquility of the street, the evening sky, the distant bark of our dog, and all that remained was her. Pinned beneath the wheels of a truck meant to terrorize. Every muscle in me coiled instinctively. Years of training, muscle memory honed in faraway deserts and hostile territories, surged forward without hesitation. I bolted from the porch, adrenaline coursing, my mind focusing with an unrelenting clarity that only danger can produce. I yanked the sidearm from the drawer, chambered around, and positioned myself with precision. This wasn't about war anymore. It was about survival, protection, and justice. Could anyone truly understand the raw terror of seeing someone you love crushed beneath cold steel and rubber? It isn't abstract. It isn't cinematic. It is the kind of fear that pierces every decision, every heartbeat. I fired at the tires, and the truck lurched, skidding sideways with a metallic scream that echoed down the street. Its momentum faltered, but the men inside weren't done. Reyes, broad-shouldered and bristling in tactical gear, leapt from the passenger seat, a shotgun raised as if to assert dominance over the chaos they had created. Connor, the driver, reached under the seat for some improvised device, a flare or projectile, intent clear in his frantic movements. And then Billy Kane's voice came over the handheld radio, calm and terrifying in its authority. "Finish it! Don't leave witnesses!" That sentence, that command, crystallized every threat we had felt into a single, horrifying reality. I leveled the weapon with unwavering focus, heart pounding yet mind razor-sharp. Every step, every angle, every ounce of leverage I had learned in years of combat flowed instinctively into my response. "Drop the weapon," I ordered, my voice steady but firm. In that moment, I was not just a father. I was every parent who has ever felt powerless, every protector who has sworn they would never let harm reach someone they love. Reyes hesitated, torn between loyalty and instinct, and I pressed the advantage, adjusting my aim, asserting control without hesitation. The standoff stretched seconds into what felt like eternity, every flicker of movement amplified by fear and urgency. But the presence of authority, the distant sirens of the real police, shifted the balance. Connor ducked, Reyes dropped the shotgun, and the first patrol cars pulled into the street, lights flashing in tandem with the fading daylight. I guided officers through what had transpired, explaining the impersonation, the threat, the assault. And even as relief began to seep in, the memory of her scream, the weight of the truck, and the orders barked over a radio remained etched in every nerve. In those minutes, every lesson learned in foreign wars, every drill and every ounce of discipline, had found its purpose in the confines of our home. Protection, quick decision-making, and moral clarity intersected with raw, unfiltered fear. Emma's pain was immediate, visceral, but so was the knowledge that we had confronted the danger, had prevented further harm, and had drawn a line that no imposter could cross without consequence. In the blur of sirens, flashing lights, and chaos, I realized the battlefield had moved to my own neighborhood, but I had stood my ground. The arrests had brought a temporary sense of relief, but deep down, I knew the story wasn't over. Billy Kane wasn't the kind of man to vanish quietly, not after the humiliation of being outmaneuvered by someone he once trusted. Every instinct in me screamed that the calm was a trap, that the shadow of his return was only a matter of time. The streets felt too quiet, the neighborhood too orderly, as if silence itself had become a warning. Could anyone truly understand the tension of waiting, knowing that the danger hadn't disappeared, only shifted? It began subtly at first. A rustle near the hedges, the faint glow of a flashlight in the wrong place, a shadow moving just beyond the porch light. Then came the unmistakable signs of escalation, a homemade device rigged to intimidate, a flare launcher aimed toward the cruiser where the local officer had parked. The audacity of it struck me with a chilling clarity. He wasn't just back. He was testing the limits, daring us to respond. The betrayal of someone I had trusted overseas added a personal sting that no ordinary threat could match. This wasn't just a criminal returning. It was a man I had once called brother, now wielding that intimacy as a weapon. Adrenaline sharpened my senses as the evening unfolded. I coordinated with the local officers, briefing them on what to expect, tracing every pattern we had observed before. Each step, each calculated move, was informed by a lifetime of experience in hostile situations. But unlike the missions overseas, this wasn't a distant battlefield. This was my home. My daughter had been injured here, and now the same man was challenging us again, using knowledge of our routines, exploiting familiarity to gain leverage. Then he revealed himself fully. Emerging from the shadows, eyes glinting with that familiar smirk, Billy moved with calculated intent. He had improvised weapons, crude but effective, each designed to intimidate and create chaos. We responded immediately, positioning officers, containing his movement, anticipating the moment he might strike. Every step was deliberate, every command precise. Could courage alone stop someone so determined to wreak havoc? Perhaps not, but preparation, vigilance, and resolve could. The confrontation escalated quickly. Devices exploded with sharp pops, scattering debris, sending officers ducking, but we held the line. I moved with calculated aggression, each motion designed to disarm and neutralize without causing unnecessary harm, though I was aware of the fine line between control and chaos. His eyes met mine for a fraction of a second, a silent acknowledgement of our shared past, a fleeting moment of recognition that our bond had been broken. Could someone ever truly reconcile with betrayal, or is it destined to remain a wound that shapes every encounter? Despite our best efforts, Billy slipped through a narrow alley, disappearing into the night as sirens echoed behind him. He had left a final message in the form of a threat, a promise of unfinished business that hung in the air like smoke. The neighborhood exhaled collectively, yet the weight of uncertainty remained. Would he return? How far would he go to regain control, to assert dominance over the one man he had once trusted implicitly? The questions lingered, a psychological tension as gripping as the physical threat itself. In that moment, I realized something fundamental. Battles are not always defined by victories alone, but by how you respond to those who refuse to respect boundaries. Authority, training, and courage matter, but so does resilience, the ability to stand firm when the enemy knows you intimately. And while Billy had escaped, the experience reinforced a lesson that every parent, every protector must confront. The world may harbor betrayal. Danger may arrive unannounced, and yet the strength to face it, to rise even when confronted with the unimaginable, defines not just survival but who we are. Months passed with a heavy weight pressing on our shoulders, but the day of reckoning finally arrived. The trial began in a packed courtroom, its air thick with anticipation, the murmurs of neighbors and reporters creating a hum of collective vigilance. I watched my daughter Emma enter the room in a wheelchair, her legs still recovering from the injuries inflicted by men who had no right to harm her. And yet, the fear that could have consumed her was replaced by an unwavering determination. Courage, I realized, is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. Emma's testimony was precise, her voice steady even as it carried the weight of trauma. She described the days of harassment, the black pickup's relentless presence, the yellow envelopes, the Polaroids, the threats. Every detail, every action meticulously documented in her live streams, and the evidence we had gathered painted a picture far more damning than any argument the defense could hope to make. Watching her recount the moments of fear and defiance, I felt a mixture of pride and sorrow. How many parents get to see their child face such injustice with such bravery and yet know the depth of suffering behind every word? The courtroom displayed the evidence like chapters of a story written in pain and persistence. Videos captured the patrol circling our street. Polaroids revealed our home and Emma herself under surveillance. And body cam audio documented Billy Kane's orders with a chilling clarity. Finish it. Don't leave witnesses. Each piece reinforced the narrative, not only proving their guilt but exposing the premeditated cruelty behind their actions. Authority, both moral and legal, aligned against men who had attempted to bend the rules of law for personal vendetta. The juxtaposition was stark: lies versus truth, intimidation versus courage, secrecy versus transparency. I glanced at the defense, watching the once confident men shrink under the weight of incontrovertible evidence. Billy Kane, the man I had once called brother, now sat with a face betraying frustration and disbelief. His crew, Reyes and Connor, mirrored that defeat, knowing that their carefully constructed facade had crumbled. But what struck me most was the courtroom's silent acknowledgement of Emma's strength. She was no longer merely a victim. She was the axis on which justice would turn, the embodiment of resilience that refused to be silenced by fear. Witnesses came forward, neighbors who had endured harassment, journalists who had followed the story, and law enforcement officers who had verified the improvised tactics of the fake HOA patrol. Each account layered the narrative, reinforcing the accountability that the law demanded. Emma's determination had inspired others to speak, showing that courage is contagious and that truth can rally an entire community against wrongdoing. Watching her interact with the prosecutor, answering questions with clarity and composure, I understood that justice is not only about punishment, it is about restoring faith in the power of speaking out. After days of testimony, deliberation, and reflection, the verdicts arrived. Billy Kane was found guilty of aggravated assault, conspiracy, and child endangerment, sentenced to 15 years. Reyes and Connor were convicted of impersonating law enforcement, reckless endangerment, and multiple counts of harassment, each receiving 10 years. The courtroom exhaled collectively, a tangible release of tension, as a balance was restored to a situation that had once seemed entirely unbalanced. Emma's strength had prevailed, her courage leaving an indelible mark on everyone present. As the gavel fell, I realized that the true victory extended beyond the courtroom. Justice had not only punished the guilty, but validated the endurance, bravery, and moral clarity of a young woman who refused to bow to fear. Her legs would heal over time, but her resolve, her ability to face danger with steadfast courage, was permanent. In that moment, the story of harassment, betrayal, and violence concluded not with despair, but with the profound certainty that resilience and truth can and will prevail. A year had passed since the day that Black Pickup changed everything. The neighborhood had regained its rhythm, but the memory of fear lingered like a shadow at the edges of our lives. And yet in the center of that shadow, Emma walked again. Slowly at first, each step deliberate, each movement a testament to courage forged in adversity. Her legs bore the scars of that night, subtle reminders of pain endured and obstacles overcome, but they could not define her. Could anyone truly understand the strength it takes to rise after such violence, to reclaim the ground you thought lost forever? Watching her, I realized resilience is rarely glamorous. It is quiet, persistent, and often invisible to those who only see the outcome. Every step she took was a declaration. Fear may wound us, betrayal may shake us, but determination can outlast both. The same girl who had live-streamed her struggle now moved with a confidence earned through hardship, her spirit unbroken. And in her eyes, I saw not only recovery but transformation, the emergence of someone who had faced darkness and refused to be consumed by it. Our community, too, had shifted. Neighbors once silenced by intimidation now spoke freely, rebuilt connections, and established safeguards to ensure no one could exploit fear again. The HOA reformed, installing legitimate security and re-establishing trust. The streets no longer felt like a battlefield, but a space where vigilance and courage had triumphed over terror. Witnessing this, I understood that resilience is not only personal, it is contagious, capable of inspiring an entire community to reclaim what was stolen by fear. As I reflected on the past year, I understood a simple truth. Survival is only the beginning. Healing requires acknowledgement, courage, and the willingness to confront both the external threats and the internal echoes they leave behind. Betrayal at home had tested my principles as much as any battlefield overseas, and yet we endured. We fought back, and we emerged stronger. Scars remain, on her legs, in our memories and in the consciousness of a neighborhood, but they are not shameful. They are proof of survival, of courage, of justice realized. Some scars remain, but so does justice. And as Emma took another step across the familiar pavement, I knew that the story of fear had ended, and the story of resilience had only just begun.